Good evening, everybody, and happy Christmas. I welcome, we don't have a full committee, but I welcome to the new Overview and Scrutiny Committee for Waverley. We're slightly depleted in numbers tonight. My name is Councillor Jane Austin. I'm chair of this committee. This meeting is being held in the council chamber in the Buries in Godalming, and it is being webcast live. The agenda was published on Tuesday, the 9th of December 2025. So let's move straight to agenda item 1, apologies for absence and any substitutions. Babatunde.
Evening, Chair. We've got a few apologies. So we've got apologies from councillors John Robini, Peter Martin, Laura Cavalieri, Councillor Terry Weldon, and Councillor Jackie Kin.
Thank you very much. And now we move on to nomination of the Vice Chairman. Can I call for nominations? And following receipt of nominations, I will ask the committee to confirm the appointment.
I would like to be nominated for Vice Chairman.
I'd like to second that.
As there are no other nominations, I believe, Councillor Lawton, you are Vice Chair. Please come up to the front. Thank you.
Chair, would you like to just ask the committee to agree? They can do it by general assent.
Oh, well, yes. Okay. Are you happy to confirm the appointment, everybody? Yes. Thank you. I'll move on to the next agenda item, minutes. Has everybody reviewed the minutes? Are there any comments from committee members? I would just ask, actually, I think we have 2 different sets of minutes. So I think you can only confirm if you were on the previous committee that you're happy with them. Yeah. So that's the minutes from the Overview and Scrutiny Resources and the Overview and Scrutiny Services meetings held on the 23rd and 15th of September, respectively. Are you all comfortable, if you were in that meeting, that they are a true record of the meeting? Councillor Gale's happy to confirm. That's everybody confirming agreement to the minutes. Any declarations of interest?
No, none that we've received, Chair.
Any questions from members?
None received, Chair.
And can we now move on to the committee work programme? That's pages 27 to 30 on your agendas. Hopefully you've all had a good opportunity to go through this forward programme. So there's been quite a lot of work done merging obviously the 2 work streams from the 2 different committees. We've held 2 meetings. Thank you to Alex Pollock and Babatunde for that. Now we've had 2 items which have been circulated separately: the homelessness strategy update and the workforce profile document. We were waiting any member comments. I haven't received any from anybody, so we will assume that those are happy to proceed without comment. Item number 3, Waverley Training Services, on tonight, and as is the economic development strategy, Cranley Leisure Centre and the Q2 financial monitoring. Just looking forward, we have now programmed for January 2026 the corporate strategy delivery programme, the Q2 corporate performance report. Obviously, this is the budget now. We will be having a budget overview and scrutiny meeting, and that will also cover the housing revenue account and or the capital strategy. If anyone has any comments on any of this, by the way, just obviously raise your hand and we'll pass it over. Also on that agenda is the housing responsiveness repairs item, which we're just waiting for an update from officers on. And the next item I just wanted to actually discuss was the fairground development. I know this is something that the Hazelmere councillors in particular, Councillor Barker-Lomax and Councillor Weldon, have been very keen to come to the scrutiny committee. We have had this scheduled in for January, but have received an update on that. Ezra, would you be happy to provide the update on that work stream? Would you like me to?
Yeah, happy to, Chair. Thank you for inviting me to give an update. So, just get my notes in front of me. So really keen to bring this to O&S, recognising the huge value that scrutiny as generally, but also would do specifically to this important project. I'm pleased to inform the committee that the fairground project has been progressing as planned. And we've reached a project gateway to spend money to start the procurement process to appoint a development partner. As the committee is well aware, earlier this year, the government announced its decision to establish a two-unitary council to establish two unitary councils in Surrey. Given the stage this project's at, our officer recommendation is that the business case is retested to ensure that all the options have been explored in light of local government reorganisation, and that we bring back revised options for consideration and assessment early in summer in 2026, and once the shadow authority is in place. So we're recommending the committee reviews fairgrounds later next year, once it can take a full look at those options in the context of the full implications of LGR on the scheme.
Thank you, Ezra. I mean, I think obviously we would have preferred to have seen this update earlier, but I think there's little value in us insisting on it coming forward if there's not the information to come in front of us. Does anyone have any comment on that? No, so we're agreed. Thank you, Ezra. That's we'll look forward to seeing that in the middle of next year. Next, ombudsman complaints. That is an item we're just waiting. Obviously, the work programme is really full. The agenda is really full for all of these upcoming meetings. And so where possible, we will be circulating documents for comment if they basically we don't have space on the agenda. I'm waiting to see the content of the ombudsman complaints one before we make a decision on whether to bring that to the meeting itself. And the same on the climate strategy and action plan. And then just moving forward, we've got local availability assessment and the Oxford Ridge whole site project review. Does anyone else have any other comments in terms of what we want to be seeing on our forward work programme? Councillor Hess.
I'd quite like to see performance of Biffa in its cleaning contract. The way it, I actually brought that up with Councillor Coburn in the previous O&S Services Committee because they don't provide a satisfactory service. Certain parts of it seem to be working well, but certain parts of it do not. I mean, I'd be happy to discuss it after this meeting or at some other point in time, but I'd quite like that to be added.
Okay, thanks. I think probably if we discuss that sort of separately, and then we can work out what the scope of the item would be and go from there, speak with officers. Thank you. I think the only other thing I wanted to mention was community asset transfers. I have been told by officers that this was coming to O&S, and it's something I also requested to come to O&S. And so I was quite surprised to see that it come to the executive in their December council meeting without previous scrutiny from our committee, and I'm a bit disappointed, to be honest. So actually that's something, I don't know if officers have got any comments in terms of when we will be seeing this. Obviously it's more difficult for us to scrutinise something after the fact. No, I've raised this with the CEO. I shall let you know what the feedback is. So assuming that we have no further items well, it says for scheduling, we've got here in principle, community asset transfers, home improvement plan monitoring, Way Court East lessons learned. Obviously just stay in touch with me as chair and we'll work on any other items as and when they appear. On that note, then I will move on to agenda item number 8, Cranley Leisure Centre new build update. I believe we have a number of officers and we also have a portfolio holder. Welcome, Councillor Townsend, tonight. And so I would first ask Tamsin, I believe, is going to present the report and we'll go from there. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Well, Townsend sets up the presentation. I think Councillor Townsend would like to do an introduction to the report, if that's okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to present this update on the Cranley Leisure Centre new build project, which marks a significant milestone in what has been a long-standing, carefully developed investment for the village and also for the wider area. This report brings members up to date on the project's current position, confirms the revised cost plan of just under 36 million, and most importantly, asks us to continue with the existing council-approved proposal, which is a passive house certified, fully inclusive leisure centre, delivering the agreed facility. Members will be very aware that the current leisure centre is 56 years old, well beyond its expected lifespan, and increasingly unreliable. Independent surveys show that simply keeping the existing building open would cost around 7.3 million over the next 5 years, with no improvement in facilities and no return on that investment. Doing nothing is not a realistic or responsible option. What this project does is turn a deficit asset into a positive one. At present, the centre costs the council money each year to operate. The new centre, by contrast, is forecast to generate an average net revenue benefit of around £450,000 per year, strengthening the general fund and providing a modern, resilient asset for future generations. I'm also pleased to highlight that the project team has successfully secured 2.65 million of community infrastructure levy funding, supporting not just the leisure centre itself, but also additional car parking and electric vehicle charging. The remaining funding requirement is proposed to be met through borrowing, which has been fully assessed and sits within our agreed Treasury limits. Officers will, quite rightly, continue to pursue further external funding to reduce borrowing where possible. Members will note that costs have increased since the original approval in 2023. This reflects market conditions affecting construction projects nationwide, including leisure centre builds. Importantly, the costs have been robustly reviewed and challenged by independent cost consultants, and a healthy contingency remains in place. The next stage will include continued value engineering without compromising the design intent or performance of the building. The scheme is also central to our climate commitments. As you know, leisure centres are energy intensive, and Cranley alone currently accounts for about 8.5% of the council's operational emissions. A passive house certified centre will use 60 to 70% less energy, and some level of energy savings are guaranteed. The leisure centre will also generate around a quarter of its own electricity and be future-proofed well into 2080s. Finally, I want to recognise the extensive community engagement that has shaped this project and the contractor's commitment to maintaining at least 100 parking spaces throughout construction. Whilst this does add an additional project cost, it does directly respond to local concerns. This report asks the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to consider the recommendations before they move to Executive and then full Council. In my view, progressing option 1 remains the most strategic, financially sound and community-focused choice available to us. I'd also, as you have already pointed out, Chair, we do have some officers with us here. Some of them will be familiar to the committee members and others will be perhaps new faces. So as the officers speak, I'm sure that you'll be given the opportunity for them to introduce themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Chair. So You have a very detailed report in front of you regarding the update.
Sorry, would you mind all introducing
Oh,
yourselves? That would be
sorry.
really helpful for all of us. Thank you, Calvin.
Certainly. I'm Kelvin Mills. I'm the Joint Assistant Director for Commercial Services, so leisure sits under my area.
Tamsin McLeod, Leisure Contracts Manager.
David Ramsey, I'm the client side project manager.
Candice Key, Head of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so there's a very detailed report in front of you. As discussed at the Chairman's briefing, we thought it was useful to talk you through with the presentation. So there'll be three of us taking in turns to take you through the report. Obviously, at the end, we'll welcome questions and look forward to feedback. So at that point, I'll pass on to David to take you to the next slide.
Thank you. In terms of the slides, the next slide is project progress. It includes the headlines of the progress from October 2023, when the full council approved a capital budget of 31.137 million. It should be allocated to deliver the new Cranley Leisure Centre. And that the leisure centre would be built to the Passive House certification standards. In 2024, design development was commenced with a specialist design team, GT3, with additional services of cost consultancy and project management. April 2024, the build contractor procurement strategy was finalised. September 24, planning application was formally submitted. November 24 to March 25, the build contractor procurement process was progressed and completed. April to August 25, project meetings started with the preferred contractor. And in August 2025, planning permission was formally granted. In September and October 2025, there was a cost plan review to check on affordability and a business case viability assessment undertaken. Moving on to the next slide. This slide shows the orange, along the top, there's the months. And to the left are the relevant actions. The orange line shows the original projected programme, with the blue line showing the actual route. In terms of the project, planning is a significant factor in the delay. As we can see, going down the brown line, that was or the orange line, that was the original programme. When the planning application was submitted, there was additional information required by the planning department, which was provided. So the planning application was validated on the 1st of November 2024 with a target committee date of 25th of January 25. But there was a delay to that because Surrey Council Highways didn't have their response in time, nor had the Environment Agency. So the actual planning committee date was the 5th of March 2025, where the project was approved with 33 conditions and the requirement for a Section 106 agreement for improvements to footpath 378, the one that runs alongside the site. This took until the 5th of August 2025 to achieve. Basically, what that did was push the programme out considerably. At that point, however, we had appointed a preferred contractor, Wilmot Dixon, and feedback from them and the other contractors involved had indicated that the project budget would need reviewing. So what we did then was we asked the cost consultants, the design team cost consultants, to carry out a thorough cost plan. Their previous cost plans had been done on a rate per square metre basis, which isn't particularly accurate. So we asked them to carry out a detailed cost plan and actually go out and get quotes from subcontractors. This they did, and then the cost plan was updated, but because it was beyond the budget limit set by the full council in October 23, we started the process of another budget confirmation by the council. So that is the programme, and moving on from that, the next slide just shows when the approved council, the original budget was approved. October 25, as I said, there was an affordability check. November 25, the budget shortfall was identified and the options considered, and the process that we're going through just now was commenced. Slide 6 is moving on to the reconciliation of costs. This was Atkins Realis. We required to find out why their costs had moved significantly, almost £5 million from their previous cost plan a year earlier, up until the latest detailed cost plan. Now, this was due to 3 factors. 1, construction inflation, 2, design development, and 3, scope increase. Construction over the year, regular construction inflation had been about 5%. So 1.6 million would have been the expected figure. However, elements of a leisure centre build in particular had increased significantly. Steel, concrete, timber, and pool plant costs had increased, as had heat pumps and solar PV. In terms of the cost, we were interested, we were considering whether we were a one-off. Was it an isolated incident? So in carrying out research, we looked at 3 other leisure centres, West Denton and Newcastle, which had increased over a similar period, excuse me, from 35 million to 40 million. Kingston Leisure Centre in London, 37 million to 45 million. And Cascades Leisure Centre, Gravesend, 34 million to 43 million. The other factor, in addition to inflation, was design development. What had happened after the original cost plan had been prepared, we appointed fire consultants and fire engineers because it's a timber frame building, and there are potential issues with the timber. So they had come up with steps to resolve fire extinguishment. If the building did go on fire, how could we compartmentalise it and contain the fire and therefore extinguish it? So there were cost increases for that. And then finally, the third point, the scope of the project increase. That was discussed with Wilmot Dixon, and it was to maintain 100 car parking spaces throughout, public car parking spaces throughout the build on the site. Now, if I can hand you on to Candice.
Thank you. So yeah, just a quick slide on the viability case for this updated project. So starting with the difference in management fees, you would have seen it noted in the report a few separate times about additional management fee costs that we're income that we're receiving as a result of this Passive House Leisure Centre. So we receive from everyone active as part of our leisure centre management agreement management fee income. At the moment, it's not an income on Cranley. We actually have to pay towards the cost of Cranley because of the way that the centre is. But with these changes, it was agreed in tender that we would get additional income, and that additional income helps us over the life of the asset. And what that results in the general fund is a net increase in income budget of 450,000 to the bottom line average per year over the 50 years. It starts to generate a net revenue income to the general fund from year 2. So it starts to support our MTFP from that period. In terms of payback, you'll see mentioned in the report what we are calling the direct council payback. What there is also is the other payback. So I just wanted to explain the difference between those two. So the number quoted in the report of 50 years is, although I'm going to say this actually, what I'm going to point out is the chair is got eagle eyes and has absolutely spotted that what we call external subsidy, we included SIL, we should have included S106. So there is going to be a correction to this report. And so what we do is we take the overall scheme cost, we take out those 2 external subsidy elements so that you're calculating payback based on the council's investment of funds rather than the overall investment of funds. It says 50 years in the report. That will be updated and corrected to 48-year payback based on that external subsidy. Without that external subsidy, so if we were just looking at the total investment, it would be a payback period of 52 years. But in terms of the payback period on the council's investment, it's 48 years on this project. I'm not going to say anything else. Most of it's in an exempt appendix, so we could talk separately if needed. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Candice. So moving on to the next slide and talking about funding and where that shortfall will come from. We've successfully secured funding, which bridges some of the gap in the budget and some of that funding gap. We achieved £2 million worth of funding of SIL in the 2023-24 round, and that was for the general new build project. And then in the 2024-25 round, we secured a further £651,900, which was specifically for the extended car park into the southern elements of the site and EV charging. So that bridges sort of part of the gap, the 2.6, just over 2.6 million. We are looking at other external funding opportunities. We've approached Sport England. Unfortunately, there isn't anything that we're eligible for at the moment, but we will continue to explore those opportunities and any other funding opportunities that we can find. And we will also explore further SIL funding, but that does leave us with a borrowing cost of just over 2 million to achieve that total secure the shortfall in the funding. I think what it's really important to note is that the extra that we've got from that SIL funding has covered elements that weren't in the original design and the design and build and the package. So we're managing to deliver more than we were originally hoping to, which is really positive. And we'll continue to look at other opportunities.
Thank you, Tamsin. So just to remind ourselves, we're currently at 4A, which is all this speak. We're just finalising the design, but we won't get a fixed cost until stage 4B, which we are proposing it will be May 26. But I just wanted to remind everyone, within the increased budget, there is an inflation allowance of 1.4 million and still has a contingency allowance of 2.35 million. So that's within that budget. And moving forward, just for note, we will be bringing the cost consultant directly under our employment to challenge any budget changes. Go for it. And just to remind us of the journey of this report, obviously we will take feedback from yourselves this evening with a view to taking it to the executive on the 13th of January 26 and then on to full council at the end of January. And that's just to remind ourselves that we will be expecting to complete the design and the fixed cost by May, and then with an aim to start on site in the summer of 26. So although delayed, I think we're, given the challenges, we're nearly there. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. In order to structure our debate, I have been working on basically some key sort of lines of inquiry, which I'm sure Alex would be very proud of me for saying that if he's on there. And then, of course, if there's anything that those key lines of inquiry don't scoop up, we'll discuss that too on top. So I think if we could just structure our conversation, I've got a couple of queries actually from what you've said I'd like to raise first of all. Then let's discuss how the information is presented in the report. We'll discuss the timing issue, specification issues, and the financials after that. And so there's a couple of queries. I'll just open it up, obviously, for any queries. Yeah, so the SIL money, could you just confirm that's all directly just for the leisure centre? It's not for things associated with the like the wider leisure centre project, like the skate park or anything like that. All of the money is just for the leisure centre and the section 106.
Yeah, that's correct, Councillor Austin. When we say directly for the leisure centre, that includes obviously Village Way car park extension. So some of the SIL funding is for additional parking space from the original sort of design.
And they're all on site then? Yes. Okay, thank you. The next question, really, thanks for clarifying that, Candice. I picked that up earlier. I just want to make sure we're comparing apples with apples, certainly from 2023 to now in terms of payback period. So it was 47 years, including Section 106. It's now 50 years, including Section 106. But if you exclude all the developer contributions, it goes down to 48 years. But we'll discuss, so if I kick off with presentation of information in the meeting, in the report, sorry, I think it's really important that we have all of those numbers so that we can see what the actual payback period on total cost is, which is, as you've said, 52 years as well in the report. Does anybody else have any other questions or queries about the presentation of the information in the report? I'll just kick that off. If not, I'm happy to get going on your behalf and start asking the questions, and then we can go from there. Yeah, go for it. Councillor Barcoloma.
Thank you. On the penultimate slide, I just wanted clarity where we talked about, because one of my questions relates to the fixed price and how we ensure that it doesn't keep going up until May 26. But then Kelvin referred to a contingency. So have you baked in an increase already between now and May 26?
We've made, as you say, we've made the contingency allowance and there's an inflation allowance. But what happens now is that the contractor goes out and gets actual prices for each package for each element of the build. We've already agreed prelims, their preliminary costs, and through the framework we acquired them through their profit is fixed as well. So what will happen now is these packages will be added together and those other points added to it. So a contract sum will be arrived at, and that sum, assuming we don't change it through the build, that sum will be a fixed price for the construction of the leisure centre.
So why are we being asked for 5 million more money now when we don't know what the fixed price is? I mean, what's the process here? It seems to me like we're being sort of led along.
Sorry, if I could answer that, it was when we started talking to the contractors and realising that the budget that we had on the table was insufficient. It was an affordability issue. We then thought that appropriate. We could have proceeded through into stage 4B and then get the final cost, but we thought it was much better to identify the issues as early as possible, as soon as we had seen them, and get that process moving. Hence the reason for doing it that way.
Councillor Gale.
That seems back to front to me. I'm not a construction engineer or anything, but it seems unusual that you would come up with a figure, especially when you're going to council to ask for more funding, but you actually don't know. We're being presented with some figures here, which is great, and we've got some breakdown of costs and things, but as it keeps going up, why can we not wait until we know exactly what this is going to cost us and we have a fixed figure with the developer or builder or whatever you want to call them, and then we can look at it? Because at the moment this is a bit sort of pie in the sky, where if we come back in 2 months' time, is somebody going to say, no, the lockers cost more? They want red ones.
Thank you, Councillor Gale. I mean, I would just, I'll allow in a moment, Candice, I would just comment generally. I mean, I'm quite astounded actually by the increase in costs, and also the delay is not good news for our residents, and everything is going in the wrong direction on this project. And of course, as a committee, that's that raises concerns for us all. Thank you for some of your explanatory notes, but we just note also that these costs are on top of inflation, which thank you, Candice, for sending this earlier, is compounded already at 5.4%. So that's significant, and it is above cost of construction index as well, I believe. So, I do think it's really important that we have, I don't see in this report lots of detail at present in terms of that comparable information that would maybe give us some comfort on these numbers in terms of the increases being comparable to other leisure centres. I'd like to see that. And there's lacking detail really to explain why economic conditions have degraded to such an extent that, but just for leisure centres, worse than the construction industry. I don't see really that evidence in the report at the moment, but Candice, maybe you can sort of come back on that. Thank you.
I certainly will on the first point. So in terms of why we've brought this to you now, I think as officers, it wouldn't be proper for us to continue to a next stage when we know that you're looking at least up to £5 million more of additional costs. We know that's coming. It wouldn't be proper for us to move to a next stage where we're going to spend a lot more money moving to that next stage. To get you to that, we need to give you the chance to say, we approve this additional spend, knowing where we are, or we don't. Or otherwise, what we would be doing is spending a lot more money, getting a lot further down the line. When we know we have to be transparent, come to you as members and give you a full report and the option of whether you want to move forward with that project or not. That's the responsible thing to do as officers and the most transparent thing to do as officers. In terms of the additional detail, note, absolutely, if you, as a committee feel that there needs to be more detail to explain those, absolutely. I know David has got much more explanation in terms of why those things have changed. So David might be able to add something to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's more that, our recommendation is to request that these things go into the report, really. I mean, I think it was helpful to receive your presentation. We just didn't see any of that in the report in terms of justification. So maybe as a committee, we'll be resolving to request that. Does anyone else have any other comments on that sort of front?
Thank you for the presentation. What would be quite helpful is that you're looking at seeing where the extra 4.8 million is coming from. And as I heard, I think I heard you say, apart from, it was only the scope increase with the extra 100 car parks, which was different brief from the original plan. Is that correct? In other words, was everything else just cost increase for the same thing as opposed to the brief had changed? Thank you.
There was also the design development in terms of ensuring the building, the cross-laminated timber construction was safe in terms of means of escape and for fire extinguishment purposes as well. So that those there were costs included for that, which probably added about another 600,000. So it was those two factors plus the inflation that comprised the £5 million.
Thanks. So, Councillor Hess, and then Councillor Gale, and then Councillor Stark.
Where to start, really? So can I just do a quick catch up? So this additional cost has come about because there was concern that the original costing based on pounds per square metre was not accurate, and therefore more specific costings went out for more specific costings. And then within these, are we able to talk about the individual items here at this point in the meeting?
Yeah, let's move on to specification.
Okay. Well, you know, when the gentleman talks about additional costs for means of escape, fire, etc., I can't understand why those wouldn't have been costed into the original scheme. I mean, they're fundamentals. And some of these things, like at the end of the day, if you can't afford something, sometimes you have to remove things. If you can't afford it, you say, well, I'll have to go without that. You know, it'd be lovely to have stone cladding, but if you've got to pay another 412,000 on top of what's already been costed, presumably, for the stone cladding, it's a huge increase. Well, maybe you have to find a cheaper form of cladding and not fork out another 412,000. And, you know, design development of masonry specifications, was that not already included in the first figure, you know, which we approved at council some time ago, 31,137,252. And, you know, you can look through this whole schedule and ask, you know, what kind of lockers and cubicles did they quote for originally? Are we now having super gold plated ones or what? Because we're talking about 358 grand. You know, why have lockers gone up so much? I mean, can that be authenticated that the actual, or is it because it's underneath the overall description of passive house, that everything you touch within passive house, even if it's a locker, is extra expensive because it's certified as a passive house locker, which seems to me to be ridiculous because, and I know nothing about passive house, I'll be honest with everybody here, but to me, the envelope of the building, which is the walls, the roof, the flooring, the windows, doors, etc., need to be to a certain specification, so you don't get cold bridging, you don't get drafts, you don't get heat loss. It's a very efficient building, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, when you're talking about all of these other costs, 322,000 for increased quantities of wall finishes, you know, it just doesn't sit right with me. I don't get it. I've gone through that, and there will be inflation effects on some of those things, I'm sure. But as I said earlier, if I was doing some work on my house and I found that the costs were coming in above and beyond what I've got available for the project, I'd have to take certain things out or change to a cheaper spec. So
Yeah.
that's just the point I'd like to make.
No, thank you very much, Councillor Hess. And I see all of the committee members nodding, so I'll just stop for a moment before the next question. I mean, obviously, that's a concern that I also really share, is that obviously 31 million, when that came to us in 2023, we thought that was a very full number, and it's concerning the thought that maybe that didn't include all of the total costs that we wanted it to. And there is this options appraisal, which is in exempt, so I won't refer to the specifics of it, but I personally don't feel yet that I have anywhere near enough information on options which are not passive house spec. I'm grateful to Candice. We've been going backwards and forwards with information today, and Candice has told me that the annual saving from a passive house spec over and above a normal low carbon centre is estimated to be about £125,000 a year. Well, payback on that would be 288 years based on the new budget estimate. So I need a lot of convincing that the people of Cranley need a leisure centre, which is this top spec, because I don't feel, I've asked what options data and analysis has been done on other options, and I think the answer is it's very top level and very limited. Can I just pass that over back to the committee on any of their thoughts? And obviously, Councillor Gale, you've got a query.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. When you read through to the different aspects of why these costs have risen, it does actually say here the build contractor has reviewed it because now they have the details from the design team. Now, does this mean that we had a design team who, from the outset, we were having a leisure centre, and then a design team have got hold of it and decided that we're going to have all sorts of additional bits and pieces in there, over and above what we were expecting for the 31 million. It does concern me that nobody was aware of this fire protection. I would have thought that must be something to do with passive house because of the construction of a passive house. And yet we were being told 31 million would cover a passive house construction. And obviously it doesn't. So that's what I see written down here, that it looks to me as if a design team have gone in and had a look at what was being proposed. And because of the frilly bits on top, if we can call them that, the lookers, and a different floor finish, this is why the increases are coming. And do we need these increases? Do we need all these extras that are being proposed in this thing here? We obviously need the thing with the fire, and I'm really shocked that nobody had come up with something to cover that originally.
Sorry, Chair, we could answer some of these questions that are being raised.
Yeah, I was just going to let you sorry.
It's just there's quite a lot being said that we could correct. You know,
Do you
the reason
wanna...
for the fire regulations is change to regulatory change. What date was that, David?
Okay, shall I just give you a minute if that's okay? I'll let Councillor Gale finish and then I'll pass it over to you all to be able to respond properly. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just think that we're going over and above. We're going gold standard here, which is lovely. And I think it's lovely if you can do that. But if we are struggling for funding, do we need to reel this back in? That's what I'm thinking.
Thanks. I'll pass it over to you, David.
Yeah, I'm just going through the various points raised. The original cost, yes, it was a rate per square metre. That's the standard way cost consultants approach this type of situation, and it's probably what they use is the RICS, the Building Cost Information Service, and that service keeps the costs updated. But what looks as though has happened is that they haven't been updating it quick enough, hence the spike in prices over a number of leisure centres. Another point, in terms of removing items, what will happen now is when we move into 4B, as well as the contractor going out and getting the packages, we'll be, and that's why we've taken the one of the reasons why we've taken the cost consultant back on board, is that we'll be carrying out value engineering of every element that goes into that building to ensure it's fit for purpose and value for money. The issue's been that so that we compare like with like, the drawings that the design team finished, completed, we've had to use them because we couldn't develop any more of the design, because then we'd have X amount of drawings priced differently. So we've got a line in the sand. We've made allowance for inflation. We've made allowance for contingency, and we'll be having a value engineering exercise to go through that. Going back to the fire protection, that came about. The passive house buildings, there aren't many of them in the country. Certainly leisure centres, there's really only 2 that have been built. So there's a discovery process as you go through, and the fire engineering came about when we started discussing with our insurers, and just to check in terms of how insurance cover would work. And they had raised concerns. So we employed Ignis, who are European specialists in timber frame. And so that's where the additional cost came in terms of design development. The locker question, or the locker comment, it's actually down to the way the table's been formatted. It's actually FF&E fixtures, fixings, fixtures and equipment. And as well as the increasing the scope of the lockers and cubicles, it also included other elements: benches, spectator seating, mirrors, hand dryers, reception desk, cafe equipment, blinds and the like. So it was a much bigger entity. And going back to whether this is a project, or the project in its current format goes ahead, that was the argument in the paper, and the attachments. It shows that the recommendation is to go for the passive house building, and even if we don't go for passive house and go for low energy, the savings are only going to be something like £1.5 million. So there's still going to be additional funding required. I hope I've answered most of the questions there.
Thank you very much, David. I think generally the concern is, of course, that with our funds as they are and our leisure centre in Cranley, do we really want to be the discovery process, and I suppose the risk of that comes with that potentially. What I really want to see is, and please committee members tell me whether you agree or not, is I want to see a lot more detail on the options analysis. I want to understand a lot more about a low carbon centre as opposed to passive house, because I think we really do need to have some very serious discussions about that now, given the escalating costs. I'm seeing you're all nodding. Do you all agree with that?
Yes, I agree.
I don't think that what we've been provided in the exempt documents is anywhere near enough information, personally, and I think we'll be taking forward a recommendation, it sounds like, along that basis. And also just in terms of fleshing out those additional costs as well, because certainly I've seen even on social media there's been complaints already about the sort of high level of those costs. I'll give you a moment to, does anyone want to comment on that? I'm just conscious we do have a number of items, so I am going to wrap this up quite soon with some draft recommendations. But Kelvin, I'll let you go, and then Councillor Gale, thank you.
Yeah, no, General, I'm obviously completely happy with those recommendations. I just wanted to make a lot of that detail was in previous reports, so we can definitely bring that detail back into this updated report as background information, certainly. So, no, happy to take that. So I know we can flesh out the options appraisal definitely to show the potential risks there.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm afraid I'm a numbers person. I'd like cash flows. I want to see how these numbers, how you've arrived at the sort of assessment that you have in terms of recommendation. Candice, I just had one more, so sorry, Councillor Gett, I just one more question while I remember it. The 450k management fee, do you only get that if it's passive house or just if it's a new leisure centre?
I could probably take that one.
Thank you, Kelvin.
Yeah, no, it will be based on the passive house because obviously utility costs are considerable to an operator of a leisure centre. So if it was to move away from a passive house, if we ignored the fact that that would need planning permission and the delays that would obviously have inflationary impacts, we would have a revised management fee as well because passive house is the only thing that guarantees the savings. A low carbon one has proven not to.
That's helpful, thank you. Maybe you could give an estimate or of what that would be, because at the moment it's just quite binary, and that doesn't really help us in the exempt stuff. I recognise that's potentially taking a stab in the dark, but anyway, Councillor Gale, thank you.
Yeah, just one thing that I know there have been some problems with the type of swimming pool that is going to be housed in the new development because of spectator seating. And I know that lots of the Cranley schools who currently use the old building have galas and things. And I was led to believe that the new build would not be able to house galas because there would be no spectator seating. And yet the gentleman behind me has just said one of the rises in cost is through spectator seating. Could somebody tell me, is this going to be a fully seated auditorium for the swimming galas?
Mind if I just clarify Councillor Gale's point as well, actually, as speaking for my children's swim club. The issue is that at the moment they have a global poolside capacity of about 297 at the latest count, and the newest pool, the global poolside capacity would be half that. And so there is the concern that they can't run galas and inter-school events, and basically that's the end of competitive swimming. I mean, it's something that I did actually want to talk about because it's noted in the report that they have been consulted. When I asked them, do you feel you've been repeatedly consulted? Perhaps you need to discuss that with them in further detail because they maybe would push back on that. I'll leave that for you to respond to Councillor Gale's point.
Thank you, Councillor Gale. Yes, we have consulted with the swimming club and we are very aware of what requirements they would like to have. The difference in building design from 1969, which is when the current one was designed, to now is very different. We've met Sport England guidance. We've even spoken to Swim England about how much spectator seating should be provided for a club of their standard, and we are abiding by all of that. But there is a difference in the amount of seating that is currently provided. We've discussed with them how they could operate differently because it would mean a difference in operation, but it wouldn't by any means mean that they couldn't hold galas. They could still hold galas, but they would have to operate them differently, and they would have to have a flow of spectators and children like the majority of clubs do across the country. And we've also spoken about the use of Hazelmere Leisure Centre because that's within our borough and within our control with the contract, and that we could host their biggest galas there so that they wouldn't lose out on any club income. So we have looked at all of those options with them and talked about how we can help them operate differently to make sure we accommodate what they need.
Yeah, sorry, just coming back on that. So you said in one breath that, other sports centres don't have seating for galas, and yet you just said we do have one. So why are we not trying to accommodate this type of thing in Cranley, which is really far out from everywhere? Cranley's a bit out on a limb. We always feel sorry for Liz. But it is, and there's no transport to or from Cranley. So I'm just wondering why we haven't thought of doing that. I know you're saying that perhaps other leisure centres these days, more modern leisure centres, don't cater for the big galas, but we've got one. So why are we not looking at that in Cranley?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, we're straying slightly here, but this is an unresolved concern. I know certainly Hazelmere have told the club that they're full. And Hazelmere is a 45-minute drive, and so is Horsham. So look, I think I've got some. This is ongoing. I think this discussion, and we're not going to serve it by carrying on talking about it tonight. This is an opportunity now, though, to take a real proper look at this project and see if it is delivering sort of all of the best value for Cranley. And I just feel that this report, as it stands, is not there yet in terms of the information that we need. I've been listening to what you've all been saying, and I've pulled together some draft recommendations, which hopefully Kimberly will put up on the screen, and maybe you can look at them and we can doctor them depending on what you all have to say. So the committee notes with, should we change it to substantial concern, not concern substantial, increasing costs and time delays outlined in the report. That whole sentence needs tweaking, in fact, so it makes sense. Would you all agree with that comment? Yeah. O&S recommends the following information should be included in or with the report for decision to the executive and to council. Further information should be provided on the low carbon option and options analysis. Justification or further justification as to the benefit / cost of passive house as opposed to a more regular low carbon leisure centre. Details of inflationary increases already built into the 2023 budget approved. So we want more detail of that in the report, because I think it's important to highlight the inflationary increases which are already built into the cash flow. And indeed, actually, some of the budget gaps as well. That's the point, isn't it? What's the word I'm looking for? Sorry. Yeah, well, just like oh God, it'll come to me in a minute. Then further evidence, including market reports to justify statements made about market conditions and the economy, which have caused increases specifically to the leisure centre market, essentially over inflationary increases already built in. Maybe we should add the leisure centre market. You did describe some of that, or I think we need more of that for all councillors. Evidence as referenced of how other leisure centre new builds have been similarly impacted with cost increases in the last 24 months. Further evidence to justify why architects, spelt correctly, because I've just noticed it's spelt wrong, have extended the life of the scheme, because it looks to have been extended now to 55 years. We've had confirmation of that via email today. A project plan with updated timelines. You've provided that to us. If you could include that. By the way, stop me if you think any of these are wrong, my fellow councillors. Further detail as to why numerous items like lockers, etc., were not fully previously costed. Do you want me to change the wording of that, Maxine?
Well, I think.
Go on.
No, I think it isn't just about lockers. I think you made a point right at the beginning that a lot of the raw materials have gone up significantly, and it's just important to try and understand how much is driven by market prices of materials as opposed to change in spec.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could we treat that sentence to reflect, Councillor? Yes, if we could tweak the sentence to reflect that, that'd be great. Thank you, Councillor Gale.
Yeah, you on one of yours that how other leisure centre new builds have been similarly impacted. I'd like to know how passive house ones have been impacted in the last few years, because other leisure centres are probably the low carbon still kind.
Yeah, I think there's only 2 in the country.
What? Are there none being built at the moment?
The only 2, St Sidwell's Point down at Exeter and Spelthorne in London are the only 2 completed. 2 of the ones on the list in terms of cost increases are passive house, and they haven't got to the next stage yet.
That's interesting. Spelthorne.
Spelthorne's finished.
Yes, less said the better, maybe, on Spelthorne. And then payback period on total project cost is included in the report, and Section 106 contributions are also included in for the payback period as well, which just tweaks it. One for the better and one for the worse. And assurances the payback period will not extend further. Any assurances that the project team can give. It sounds like we're not even at the final number yet. So
It's a big issue.
yeah, do you want to put something in there about that, actually concerns about that?
Well, I'm not sure whether that's possible because I think you're still chasing a moving target. But I think you said that by May 26, you'd be able to have a better indication. I don't know whether that means it's full and final and contractually they can't move from that, or whether they're going to be chasing another number because of market forces in May, June, July 26.
Yeah. During this process, because planning was taking so long, what we have done is progressed with the pre-contract service agreement, the build contract, the innovation documents, and contracts for client-side consultants that we'll need. So all these documents are ready. So when we send round the programme, you'll see that there's actually the tail end of 4B is quicker than the original one. And that's the reason, because all these documents are there ready to be signed.
But in answer to your question, once you get to May 26, the fixed cost, that is the fixed cost then.
Yeah.
It won't move from there, no.
I think another thing, just on presentation of information, of course, the 2.6 million of SIL would have offset or 2.2 million of that would have offset the original 31 million pounds that was already in, wouldn't it? So I don't think it's necessarily, I think it's a bit disingenuous to suggest that the 2.6 total is like going to pay for half of this additional cost, because that was already planned, the SIL application, the 2.2. No, it wasn't included, but it was already always the intention that you would apply for it. So you wouldn't have applied for SIL.
I think that does need I mean,
I think that needs clarifying
it
in the
does need
report.
clarifying in the report. In the 31 million in our original, no, we had not included SIL application, but a SIL application was made. I would agree that there's 600,000, which is to do with the parking, which is an additional element. The 2 million, we need to go back and check what that was based on in terms of the SIL application, because that would have included a total cost, and we can then clarify that in the report.
Sorry, why would you assume that there would be no SIL available in your original proposal in 2023?
We hadn't secured the SIL, so even if we'd bid, I couldn't put in a finance to say we might receive 2.2 million. If we don't receive it, that throws the viability out, and that means the approval you made would not stand. So we have to go on what we've got. We hadn't at that point made a bid. Even if we were planning on making a bid, we hadn't been successful, so we can't include it in your funding at that point.
Yeah, so your original payback period and cost approvals were on the basis of a SIL application not having been yet made in 2023, whereas obviously the SIL bid was successful on the original 31 million budget assumed in 2024. So I just think that does need clarifying in the report. I don't know if we can put a sentence in there on, can we add in clarification on SIL position offsetting 2023 budget numbers? Hopefully that will make sense to everybody as a memorandum.
And just to be clear, does that mean this 2.651 million that you've now secured is fixed? It can't go up or down after this?
It could go up if we put in another bid for SIL, but that SIL application is fixed. Yes, yeah.
Councillor Barker-Lemon.
So I wanted just to start a conversation, not necessarily for now, but maybe set up a little working group, because what I've observed in a few committees now is that I understand we want to be a sustainable council, and that's great. But it does seem to me that there are levels of sustainability, and that we kind of we impose upon ourselves and upon the taxpayer this sort of gold standard, whereas in fact we don't have to be gold standard sustainable. You know, we could spend the money in other ways, and for example, on some of the housing work that we've done, it seemed to me that that was utterly unscalable because of the cost per unit. And I did wonder if we could have a slightly more holistic view on this, because I hear about it on this committee and on that committee and this project and that project. And what is the big picture here? You know, we like the word sustainability, all of us like it, and we all know we owe it to the next generation, but we also have a duty to taxpayers. And I think we should have a sort of a rationalization of, you know, do we need this gold standard sustainability, or would our constituents be happy with low carbon that is not a gold standard low carbon? Do you know what I mean? And so if we could have the big picture, and actually what are we securing? What benefit do we get in terms of sustainability? Plus, what's the actual cost to the overall cost to the taxpayer for us choosing this kind of yellow brick road of, to mix metaphors, gold plating the sustainability?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think in 2023, I was given a number, and I don't know if it's exempt or not, of exactly the value attributable to passive house over a normal low carbon. And I just think that we owe it to the general public. We don't have that data right now. So I think, thank you for raising that, Councillor. I think this is part of a separate, bigger question about net zero to 2030 of a council that won't exist in 2030, you know, all of those ambitions. But Candice, let's keep on Cranley Leisure Centre. We're zoning back to Cranley Leisure Centre now. Thank you.
I'm just going to add actually that at the recent joint overview and scrutiny, there was an item there on internal carbon pricing, which talks about monetising that carbon element, which will be really helpful for you as members going forward, because what you'll be able to see is the true cost or saving of that carbon element versus one that doesn't have that. So that is coming through, and it's probably an interesting paper to have a read through, and you'll start to see that coming through in all financial analysis coming forward. Yeah.
Yeah, but so that we've got the sports centre, and then we had those houses that were done up in a way that we couldn't possibly afford to scale up. And so then we have to think, you know, this can't just be a vanity project. You know, what can we do that we could scale up? You know, if we are going to be sustainable and not just talk about it, you know, we need the big picture.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Hess, and then I'm going to ask if you're all happy with these, and then we'll move on to the next item.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. I made a margin note earlier. Just want to check whether I'm correct. That it was said that we're looking at other lending sources to be secured for, I think, well, I've written 2 million down here. So does that mean that at this point in time, we don't yet know where this additional money is coming from? So we're, if you like, committing to a project for which we don't have the money?
Thanks. The scrutiny team ask Candice.
Yes, absolutely. No, absolutely. But so the lending is not what we're looking at. So if we can't get any other external funding, what we'll explore is there any other grants? Is there any other sort of money we can pull in to lower the cost of borrowing? We can secure borrowing in many ways, internal borrowing, PWLB, and that's completely safe. There's no risk to that borrowing, so that's fine.
Thanks. So, I mean, tonight we've basically scrutinised a paper that we'll be able to talk about again when it comes to council, and indeed prior to that when it comes to executive. We just need to make sure that that paper is armed. We've given our feedback to, I hope, food for thought. Go on, Councillor Law.
I just wanted to try and understand if we're asking for the officers to come back with more detail, what does that do to the timeline which you've put forward in the earlier slides? Is it going to hold up everything, or are we still going to be able to maintain the revised plan, which I think was a turquoise colour, but I can't remember what it was.
The way I've taken recommendations, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chair, is we bring these comments into the report that will then go to the executive and on the same journey, and allow that scrutiny to happen again at council. It won't come back to O&S before it goes anywhere. So it shouldn't delay, well, you know, all being fair that we can answer those questions, that shouldn't delay the programme. No.
I've seen Alex, I'm sorry, I didn't realise you had your hand up. I'm not sure how long it's been there. Please speak.
Thank you. Not long, and you nearly promoted me to councillor then. Thank you. Yeah, I just thought if you'll allow me to comment on process. So we did a good bit of scrutiny training a couple of weeks ago with some of the members who are here, and there's some really good things happening this evening, but I thought it'd be good to just touch base on what's happening. So I can see there are a number of recommendations emerging from the meeting, which are recommendations to the executive that mainly they are that a certain amount of information might go into this report. So if that's the case, then the committee needs to vote and agree that those are your recommendations to the executive, that this further information be included in the ways set out. The executive, of course, might not agree to do those things, such as the nature of recommendations from scrutiny. So they will, you ought to expect that they will include what information you're asking for where they feel they can, and where they can't, you might reasonably expect that you'd get a response probably by email that would say, this is why we haven't done these things or responded to those recommendations you had. But your recommendations would go into the report under the section about scrutiny's comments, so you'd be able to see where they had and hadn't been responded to. And the other thing just to say is that your prioritisation plans are going really well in that you've focused your attention on this first item, but I'm a little bit concerned about time for the remaining items. That's all from me.
Hear, hear, Alex. It's nearly Christmas. Let's try and power through. Is everybody happy with the recommendations? Oh, sorry, Councillor Gale.
I just want to clarify what Alex has just said. So we've put all these points forward and the officers have said, yeah, we could put that in the report. Yeah, we could put that in the report. So we only put these to the executive. And then if they say, no, we don't want those in the report, we won't get those details. Is that correct?
Councillor, sorry, not councillor, officer, Alex Pollux. Yeah.
It's all right. Yeah, happy to address that through you, Chair. So you've had an indication from the officers in the room this evening, which has been really helpful and open and a really constructive way of working, that a number of the things you've raised probably are possible to include in the report. And I'm not suggesting that somebody's about to kind of countermand that. But that's one of the reasons why I'm reminding you as a committee how it formally works, which is that you're here scrutinising the executive. You heard from the executive member first, symbolising that that's who you're scrutinising, and then the officers have had a long discussion with you, giving you more detail, which is great. So just technically speaking, you've got some recommendations here which you are making to the executive, and you should expect that to play out in a response that either gives you what you asked for or explains why it hasn't been included in the report.
I think we can only put our best foot forward. I'm very hopeful that a lot of those are pretty uncontroversial, frankly, because it's just requests for more information. Should we have a vote on all of the recommendations in draft above? Is everybody happy to agree those? Thank you. We've made it through this agenda item. Right. Let's move on. Thank you, everyone. Does anyone need a break or anything Thank you to officers for coming along tonight. That was really helpful. Next agenda item is Waverley Training Services. We have here in the report, we have the portfolio holder responsible and also, I'm so sorry, would you mind introducing?
So my name's Adela Sullivan. I'm the Centre Manager for Waverley Training Services.
Thanks very much. Okay, over to you, Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to introduce this report on Waverley Training Services, which provides an update on progress against the 5-year business and action plan covering 2025 to 2030. The business plan was developed in response to a decline in commercial income post-COVID and, importantly, to ensure the long-term sustainability of this valued service. The purpose of bringing this update to overview and scrutiny is to provide transparency, demonstrate measurable progress and ensure that Waverley Training Services has the strongest possible opportunity to meet its objectives. I'm encouraged to report that positive progress has been made across all key action areas, which officers can cover in more depth. We have strengthened our marketing approach, including closer working with the communications team, improved employer-facing materials, and the recruitment of a new business development officer starting in January 2026. These steps are already improving visibility and positioning Waverley Training Services for future growth. There has also been a solid progress in succession planning, quality assurance and staff development, ensuring resilience within the service. Achievement and distinction rates are improving year on year. Matrix re-accreditation has been secured and preparations are well underway to respond confidently to the new Ofsted inspection framework. In terms of widening the offer, Waverley Training Services has expanded commercial activity, is developing new apprenticeship standards 2026 and has taken on management of the council's apprenticeship levy. This not only supports increased apprenticeship numbers, but ensures that levy funding is maximised for the benefit of local residents and the council itself. The recommendation before you is straightforward: to review the business and action plan update, consider the progress made and to put forward any recommendations that may further strengthen delivery. Waverley Training Services directly supports our strategic priorities around prosperity, inclusion, sustainability and good governance, and it also presents a significant opportunity as local government reorganisation progresses. I very much welcome the scrutiny of this item from the Chair and committee members. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just going to open this up for comments from the committee, and I have a few comments as well. I'm sure. Oh, I'm so sorry. Please do present.
So yeah, I have sent lots of documents over, which hopefully that you've read. I'm happy to go through each area of the business plan, the progress we've made so far, and answer any questions and welcome your thoughts and suggestions.
You have, and I have shared the email I received earlier with the committee, which I'm sure you've all read forensically. So does anyone have any comments really on the report? That I understand the business plan itself is exempt. Is that correct? Or is that? Yeah, I think it is. But we can obviously comment on the, is that?
I was told that it should be exempt.
Yeah. So we can't refer to the business detail within the business plan itself, but obviously the other information in the report is not. I'm going to start with Councillor Hess and then I'll move on to Councillor Barcolomax. Thank
you. Thank you, Chair. It'd be interesting to get a view of the market. I mean, if you can call it a market, or the demand for apprenticeships, and also from business customers, because in the report we've got an increase of 20% for apprentices over the term of the plan, and an increase of business customers by 10%. And I just wondered whether there is a surge of demand out there, or where these people will come from, whether they will actually be mainly from local authority sources, or from the general commercial business sector. So that's my question. Thank you.
Over to you.
Thank you, Councillor Hess. So yes, our business plan included 20% increase in learner numbers and 10% of businesses. We have met the business customer increase. We are, as detailed in our matrix report, a favoured training provider in the public sector. Obviously, we have relationships with all of the boroughs and district councils, but we still work with other organisations such as hospitals. Enterprise Rent-A-Car is another one, so it's growing that, all of it really. But we have recently taken on a cohort of managers doing the operational level 5 qualification within Waverley and Guildford, you know, in response really to LGR and to support our staff using the apprenticeship levy, which we pay anyway to HMRC. I think the growth can be there. It's just a little bit more delayed because obviously the recruitment of our second business development officer has been a little bit later.
Councillor Barcolomax next, and then I'll take Councillor Steiger and Councillor Gebb.
Thank you. And so I haven't had time to read the papers that came this afternoon just because I was at work and then came straight here. So it may be that my question isn't appropriate, but here we go. So in that context and with that caveat, so what I observe is that the overall cost is 549k, divided by 74 apprentices equates to about 7.4 thousand per apprentice per year. That's over twice the amount paid per apprenticeship in comparable councils. I mean, some get up to 6, but some are right down at 3,000. So which is clearly not great value, and I understand we're working towards improving that. From what I've read, and again, I didn't read what was sent this afternoon, what I see is a good statement of intent, but it seems to me it lacks adequate details, such as number of courses, number of students, scale of fees, when we break even, who are the who else could provide the services. And what I would like to see, again, subject to whatever you sent this afternoon, would be that we delay a vote on this until we have the adequate details and to make the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I completely understand the getting here and being at work. So I believe that most of the things that you've raised were covered in my response today to a lot of those. So the courses that the qualifications that we deliver are listed in the response. You also, you asked about the value. I mean, that's the funding that we receive, between 3,000 and 12,000 for each learner. Is that?
So I was looking at the overall cost, and so what I wanted to see is the number of students, the scale of fees, the break-even year, and also alternatives such as who else provides these services.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, Councillor Lewis, so I can come in on one second on that. With regard to the 500,000 you're referring to, it should be noted that 212,000 of that is support costs that aren't directly attributable to the operation itself. It's a generic spread of costs and wouldn't be saved if WTS wasn't part of the team, part of the council. So in reality, we look at the direct costs as a way of judging the performance, because we have no control over the support costs. With regard, I think that was what you were referring to, the overall cost of the service. Yeah.
In terms of other people offering this, so I have been in the industry a very long time, and I've recently been made the chair of the Association of Learning Providers in Surrey, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. And so obviously I meet with lots of training providers regularly, and we are quite unique because of all the boroughs and districts in Surrey. We are unique in that Waverley Training Services doesn't just deliver in-house, we deliver to external organisations. Surrey County Council also has a contract to deliver apprenticeships, but they choose to only deliver in-house, which is why we deliver to the other boroughs and districts. So there are there are training providers, but again, going back to our matrix report, which said we were the first choice of providers in the public sector.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to just butt in for a minute. I think, thank you for the information this afternoon, which sadly, a lot of that wasn't actually in the report, which I think would have been really helpful. But I'm just really, when I read that report, I got absolutely no sense of, one, what the issue was, two, what you were doing about it, and three, what courses you ran and which ones were running successfully and which ones weren't. And I suppose that's what I've been trying to eke out, because I mean, the issue, why this is here now, why this has a business plan, is because it's been losing significant amount of money over the last few years, hasn't it? It's lost 2021, it made 75k, and then it's lost 79k, then 364, then 312, and it's forecast to be 500 odd k this year. That's massive amounts of money, and obviously, as a scrutiny committee, we're really concerned about that. That's why, you know, as a council, group of councillors, we're really concerned about that. And I just, personally, I didn't feel that this report really gave me any inkling as to, first of all, identifying exactly where the issues are in Waverley Training Services in terms of what courses are running well and what ones aren't, what take up is for certain courses and what it isn't, you know, like on a percentage basis per course. That's what I think would be really useful to show. So you could say, right, the accountancy course, we got 63% take up in 2023. In 2025, it was, I don't know what, you know, so you can identify trends of where it's working and where it's not working. The report, as I've said in my email, is actually just completely silent on LGR. And that's the biggest thing I think that should be forefront personally in all of your minds, and a plan for seeing your way through that now. And I just didn't feel that was addressed either in the report, or in the business plan. I asked for a cash flow, and apparently there is a cash flow, but I've not been provided it. And then just in terms of staff cover, I mean, I get no sense really of what's actually happening. There are 4 members of staff, but are they being fully utilised at the moment? Are they not? I'm still just not really clear. So personally, I would request that this goes away and comes back again in a few months' time with more detail. But can I just pass that in the context of that, Councillor Gale?
I've just got a couple of really quick questions. If I don't know if you'll have the answers. How many apprentices do you actually have working at the moment? How many business customers do you currently have on the books that are actually active at the moment? And how many different course topics do you offer?
Oh, hi there. Yeah, thank you for your question. I can answer all of that. So we currently have 78 apprentices. We're currently working with 34 employers with those apprentices. They're live. I do actually, because the email came through late regarding numbers, I will, I've worked that out, but I was travelling here. So
thank you, Adele. Thank you.
No problem. In terms of the courses, they are apprenticeship standards. So we have a contract with the Department for Education to deliver apprenticeships, so nationally recognised qualifications. We offer business administration, customer service, team leading, accounting, management. That's it. On all of those, it's a test. I mean, in terms of percentages, I can't give a percentage because of our 4 teaching staff, 3 of them cross-train. So I've got capacity at the moment for 22 more apprentices, but it doesn't mean we'd only take 22 business administration or 22 customers. It's the employer need that drives which qualification that we take them on. I hope that's covered everything.
If I can just say, that gives us an idea of how many people we're dealing with, because from the reports, I couldn't sort of work out how popular it is for the council to be doing this if people can go for day release to colleges, for instance. So
one of the things that our employers do like is that we don't do day release like colleges. So a qualification such as the apprenticeship standard would take you much longer going to a college because we actually deliver one-on-one, either remote or face-to-face in the business premises. So that's what is preferred over day release.
So just to throw it out there, how long does it take to do an apprenticeship in business studies with you?
So our business administration qualification, up until recently, all apprenticeships were a minimum of 12 months. This has now been reduced due to the level. So we do business administration level 3, and that would be somewhere between 12 to 18 months, depending on the person's prior knowledge.
Thank you, Councillor Steiger.
Thank you, Chair. I went to the Neighbourhood Area Committee yesterday. Now we're mentioning the local government reorganisation. So this is where the local community in Farnham are running a pilot, and this really came up, the whole thing about young people and training, because it's been in the news recently with the NEETs. I think even in Waverley, it's quite a high percentage, and we really looked at your service to try and see if that could be part of the solution. We had the High Sheriff of Surrey, I believe, who runs a similar service in Leatherhead, and he said that particularly in construction and care, there's a lot of need for more training, and other people also threw in with AI taking over some of the some of the jobs perhaps in the future. That's some of these older professions, or however you want to express it, may become more important, especially for our young people to start off with. So I just really wanted to see what your feedback was in that area, in a more general and also looking forward to local government reorganisation, how you think your organisation would fit into that and perhaps be able to expand. Thank you.
So we are actually looking at delivering further apprenticeships in 2026. It won't be in construction because I don't have anyone qualified, and often the facilities you require for construction are obviously a very expensive initial layout, and you need a lot of space. We have actually looked at childcare because nurseries are crying out for staff and they want qualified staff. However, an apprentice should be taken on and counted as an additional headcount. And the problem is that a lot of training providers in Surrey are having with childcare is the nurseries don't want to take them off the shop floor, which with apprenticeships, off-the-job training means that you're not on the floor looking after those young people. Still, and strangely enough, always surprises people, business administration is the most requested apprenticeship standard by employers and young people, and I actually always recommend it to young people if they're not sure what they want to do, because we meet lots of 16 to 18-year-olds who, I don't know, but ultimately every organisation requires good business administration. And we are looking at other qualifications, but actually we are covering the most requested. We did actually run a study programme before COVID and actually through COVID, which was for 16 to 19-year-old NEETs. And it was, so we had them during COVID and lockdown, and we carried on teaching them. And what seemed to happen after kind of we returned from lockdown was that a lot of the referral agencies seem to disappear. Now, I know there are still young people in Waverley and Surrey who are neat. In fact, that number's probably the highest it's been for many years. But I don't think they're being as monitored as well as they were pre-COVID. You know, those services aren't necessarily supporting young people like they did. And that's the link to send them to those services. So we could bring that back in tomorrow, that service, which is, you know, sometimes it's English, maths, employability. We did all of that very successfully as well. But we can't have a classroom with only one young person sitting in it. So I think that's all. Sorry, I've gone on.
I've got one other comment regarding LGR, and it was something.
Sorry, yeah.
I think post-COVID, the referrals have been lost, and as you've talked about, NEETs haven't gone away. In fact, the concern is that there's more than ever. I think LGR creates quite a unique opportunity for Waverley Training Services. In a sense, it's always been a bit of an odd thing for Waverley Borough Council to run, but actually sit that within an education department, linking with those people that deal with NEETs, that deal with, I think those referrals I think that can be really joined up. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity with LGR to really serve those young people. And I believe Waverley Training Services is well placed to do that.
And sorry, can I just add one final thing? As I mentioned earlier, we have got 50 managers from Guildford and Waverley who've signed up to the level 5 management qualification that we're teaching them in preparation for, you know, and helping staff training, because again, training budgets are reduced all over. So we're going to every borough and district council and making that offer, because we do work with all of them anyway. So that's why LGR really, for us, is an exciting opportunity.
Thank you. I've been scribbling away all your comments and notes, and I'm just about to press send to Kimberly. There we are. So if maybe you could put that up on the screen and as a sort of draft. What we're really doing is we're giving you feedback on this report, aren't we? It's not going to, is it going to the executive or no?
No, we have a separate board of governors that will take on the views and come back and look at those, definitely.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, this is not a personal comment, but the report in its form I just came away completely like clueless still, really, in terms of what's really happening. I just wanted to see numbers. I wanted to see the list of courses, and I wanted to see like what's the scale of your organisation as compared to other people in the market. What's your USP? I've just put all of our various different comments on here as feedback, really, because obviously Waverley Borough Council taxpayers are subsidising this to a significant value. And I would ask that this comes back to us in 6 months' time, if possible, with a lot more information. I don't know if you would agree with that as you know, reformatted and in a more sort of numerically digestible way for us to look at it properly. Because at the moment, I'm none the wiser, really. And a lot of the stuff that you've provided in a private email, we'd like to see in a public report. Councillor Lawton, did you have a comment?
Yes, I agree with everything you say, and that's really important as you move forward. I mean, it seems to me that the opportunities are very strong insofar the NEEPs are increasing, LGR, as you already said, so I can see where there's a huge opportunity to make this business viable. What I don't really understand, and apologies, I haven't read that report which was sent out this afternoon either, so, well, sorry, the email, is that I ask you a very difficult question. Why did you move from a viable business 5 years ago to a loss-making business this year? Is it because the market has changed significantly, or is it that you weren't able, is it internal issues which resulted in this? So I think that helps understand what went wrong, is to help make sure it goes right. And I don't really understand where you moved from, what was it, £80,000 profit to a £500,000 loss.
Thank you. I take your comments on board, and all of the information I've provided this evening and in the emails overnight, then I will happily put that into a report and bring it back to you in 6 months' time.
Well, can you give me a
Oh, sorry.
summary of what it is?
Sorry.
Just a sort of 3 or 4 points. It's because of 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so in terms of why we've gone from a business bringing in, there's been obviously we did have COVID, so we weren't necessarily affected in that year because people were already on the programme, and we did it very well with. We had a huge contract with Kingston Hospital, so we kind of thought that but they did actually complete. Where's the list of things? Sorry, I did.
Perhaps it would be easier if you responded via email to us all. Would that be helpful? Thank you. I'm just conscious. It's the 16th of December and I'm going to try and not keep you all here till 10 p.m.
And
Thank you, Kelvin.
an open offer just to say we'd love anyone to come and visit and show around, and really, because sometimes it's difficult to put in paper what's there, but we're happy to show around. Thank you. No problem. We'll arrange that as well in the new year.
Thank you. We can feel your passion about it, which is really nice and heartwarming. But yeah, we just need to see it. Now, I'm finally going to allow Alex to have his moment. Over to you.
So I was going to make a suggestion about how you might want to resolve to put a recommendation down to finish your discussion. So I can see that you'd like more information. A suggestion that might avoid you committing yourself with regard to your work programme, which is likely to change a lot over the coming year. What you might want to do is request that, resolve that you'll seek further information as per the queries that you've got perhaps on the screen, or any of those that haven't yet been answered, and with a view to deciding whether you need an item in 6 months' time. Do you see what I mean? It's just avoiding you committing yourself to something that you might actually find isn't necessary once you've gathered that information. So that's my suggestion, and you might want to just get clear what your wording is before you resolve it now with a vote before we finish.
Thank you. Do you want to? I'm happy with that. We're all happy with that. Do you want to suggest a change of sort of, or take that away as a first line? As to how to change that then. So resolve to it's
request
O&S.
further information. Sorry, Chair. Shall I say a sentence that might?
Please
might
do.
Be yeah. So you might resolve to request further information. So I think what you might resolve is to ask the Chair to request further information from the service in line with the queries raised today, with a view to deciding whether an item is needed in about 6 months' time. That gives you, Chair, the opportunity to collate whatever questions it might need to be.
Thanks, Babatunde. Did you get that okay? Yeah, we're all good here. Can we have a vote based on Alex's forward and our collective feedback? Are we happy?
Agreed.
Agreed. We're all agreed. Thank you. Powering through it. Right. Shall we move on to the next agenda item, please, which is actually the Economic Development Strategy and Action Plan. Now, the next two agenda items, I don't foresee us spending masses of time on, because Catherine's going to introduce this and update this one, and the next one after that, well, the whole of January is going to be a budget planning meeting, so I don't think we need to do it to death tonight. So, right, Economic Development Strategy. Is Catherine here?
Chair, she's online. I just have a few words to say, if that's okay, to introduce the report before going over to the team. Thank you, Chair, if that's okay. So thank you, Chair and members of the committee, for the opportunity to present this update on the delivery of Waverley's Economic Development Strategy and Action Plan. As members will recall, the strategy and its first action plan were adopted in April 2024 in response to major economic shifts, including Brexit, the pandemic, and continuing global instability. Since then, pressures from inflation, the cost of living, and international conflict have persisted, making the case for a clear, place-based and resilient approach to economic development more important than ever. I'm pleased to report that despite these challenges, the borough's economy has shown encouraging signs of resilience. Business numbers have stabilised and begun to grow again. Unemployment has fallen at a time when national figures are rising, and we are seeing increased workforce participation. Vacancy rates on most of our high streets remain well below the national average, and targeted events and place-based activity continue to drive footfall. The report before you highlights strong progress across our 6 Thrive themes and game changer programmes. This includes practical support for small businesses through IncuHive, significant investment delivered via UK Shared Prosperity Fund and Rural England Prosperity Fund projects, new initiatives such as Go Green for Business, and the new collaboration with Seedle with our online training hub for businesses and residents alike, together with our continued collaboration with our business improvement districts, chambers of commerce, neighbouring councils, our local town and parish councils in the 4 major settlements, and the University of Surrey. It's also important to acknowledge the scale of what has been delivered by a very small economic development team, whose role is increasingly important as local businesses continue to face significant challenges. Our website and newsletters continue to provide invaluable business spotlights and information, as well as a free directory service. The second part of the report looks to the future, setting out proposed priorities for the next 6 months. These have been carefully calibrated to reflect available capacity and funding while remaining ambitious and responsive to emerging challenges and opportunities. The report is therefore brought to you to review that progress and provide feedback on those 4 priorities, together with any recommendations to ensure that we continue to build a prosperous, sustainable, inclusive economy for Waverley. Thank you, Chair, and I welcome members' comments and recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend, and I'll pass over to Catherine Knight. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. Abby, Lewis and myself are going to do a double act on this. Abby's going to share her screen and talk about briefly on the strategy that was adopted last year in April and progress that's taken place in the last 18 months and priorities for next year.
Thanks, Catherine. I'm hoping the committee members can see the slide that I've got on the screen.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Fabulous, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to actually bring an update forward to the committee tonight. I think it was a request from the previous committee to kind of highlight, as Councillor Townsend's outlined, kind of where we've got to following the adoption of the strategy back in April 2024. So we're just going to run through a very quick presentation, mindful that you've had quite the evening of it already, and we're really welcome any feedback that you have on any of the work that we've done to date and the proposed delivery that we've got against the actions next year. So just as a really quick highlight, essentially the outcome of the economic development strategy resulted in a new vision of how the council proposes to work with and encourage sustainable economic growth across the borough. It was a council-wide strategy in terms of the vision that you see on the screen, which we felt was important because there are various different services that interact with business and residents, and kind of harnessing that interaction is really critical to the success of the strategy and the delivery of the priorities that sit within it. The strategy itself was a culmination really of work carried out throughout 2024 and the back end of 23 actually by officers and our appointed consultant team, Avison Young, and we carried out extensive engagement with local business community and other key stakeholders, some of which Councillor Townsend have touched on already, and it led to the formulation of what we called the Thrive themes, which you see on the page there. So essentially turbocharging was around supporting the existing business to prosper and attracting small business and startups to the borough. Harnessing the green economy revolution was about mitigating the impacts of existing businesses and stimulating the growth of the low carbon green economy. Refining the high streets and urban centres was very much around supporting the towns as they evolve or to evolve rather, and remaining resilient in the face of significant macroeconomic pressures and the changes in which we kind of interact essentially with the economy. Improving our commercial office space was about trying to reverse the decline in commercial floor space and enhancing our offer to attract modern and productive businesses by providing the right type of accommodation that they need. Valuing our people and foundational requirements was around ensuring that all residents can benefit from our economic success and support the sectors that essentially underpin our day-to-day requirements, the foundation economy as it is. And then E was around enhancing our physical and digital infrastructure. So thinking about how that is critical to essentially improving the attractiveness of our borough to businesses. And underneath the Thrive themes essentially sat the game changer programmes, or they do sit, and these are really ambitious. They cover a range of short, medium and long-term actions to deliver the themes, and you see there on the screen there, it's around encouraging growth but not at any cost, and focusing again on that green economy, low carbon sectors, creative sectors, really critical in Waverley, creative University of Creative Arts. We've got Farnham Maltings, all of these really strong anchors essentially across the borough, underpinning much of the economy. Regenerated Waverley, I've talked there around previously around the changes that urban centres are essentially facing, but this is thinking about how we might utilise urban areas in the future and how in particular public assets might have a role within that. The rural Waverley game changer theme is around supporting what's a really existing strong rural sector, a really significant sector, but it also in kind of its strength has really unique opportunities but also challenges, and thinking about how we can best support these. Equal Waverley, we've just had an item around Waverley training services tonight, and you know, colleagues have indicated some of the challenges that exist around those not in education or trainings at the moment. So that's kind of that in a nutshell, thinking about how we can bring them closer to the market. And then connected, that's around digital infrastructure, physical infrastructure, which we know is ever important within the world that we operate at the moment. So that's kind of the framework essentially that we have within the economic development strategy. And pass on to Catherine now to talk through where we've got to.
Thank you. So within the strategy, so I'm Catherine Knight, Economic Development Manager for Waverley, and as Abby mentioned, we're a team of 1.5. So the key performance indicators of the strategy, we had a baseline position when the strategy was adopted, and then targets for 5 and 10 years. So I've just pulled out some of the indicators as of 2025, and then you can see, for example, so the number of jobs, number of businesses. Something that Waverley does suffer from is we have a lot of business births, but then a lot of business deaths or cessations. So that will be an area that we need to focus on. Number of unemployed people, and therefore employed people. It looks like it hasn't changed. It has actually changed, and we use no-miss data from Office of National Statistics, and you can see how it ebbs and flows. But we are the higher point was October 2024, so it changes all the time. And there we've explained the proportion of quality office space, not much, and something that could be improved, and maybe working with the local plan and with other investment property developers. On the next slide, this is just a sample of the key performance indicators to note. The entire list are in the strategy. Something that I wanted to touch on was to give a bit of an overview of the economy in Waverley at the moment, and we produce this on an annual basis and then put it on the Business Waverley website so other business owners and stakeholders and partners can see. So drawing in data from, as I said, Office of National Statistics, number of jobs in the area. Something to note is the difference between the earnings by workplace and the earnings by residents. So residents proportionally earn a lot more than people who are employed in the borough. So something we'd like to focus on, and we do work towards, is quality, well-paid employment. Another thing that I've noticed, and we've noticed, is the level of education. Previously in Waverley, there'd been 60% of residents had a higher level qualification, so it's something to flag. And then again, points at the bottom, how we're involved in business support, and the metrics of what the team and also the wider council on economic development are doing. So one thing we wanted to talk about this evening was the highlights of the work we've done to date. So here we've got an overview. There's much more in the report, and there's some appendix in the main report. So one of the main pieces of work post-COVID was a proportion of the UK Shared Prosperity Grant from government. We had £1 million, and we went through a rigorous governance process. We had 100 projects submitted to the council, and then looking at disadvantaged community data and different metrics, we allocated to 15 projects. Several youth projects, so the youth hub in Godalming, in Hazelmere, and then there was, you can see there, but Southwest Domestic Abuse Service, the CAB, and then a couple of business support programs, one of which was really successful at the Farnham Maltings, a creative business program. And they were working with the UCA on mentors, so really successful. We got full reports on those every quarter and fed that back to government. Linking into the strategy, as Abby was mentioning, and turbocharging smaller business economy, the Rural England Prosperity Fund, again in the appendix, we've got lots of case studies of the businesses that were awarded the £400,000 grant. They bid for it and it was a match funding project. So there are some really good business cases there that I'd recommend you have a look at, whether it's farm diversification or small businesses. I think the Baptist Church for some community space, so a range of support there. Other highlights in the last 18 months, as Councillor Townsend mentioned, we've got an IncuHive contract. We've had that for several years. We've got a really good value for money. It's £5,000 a year and it's free one-to-one business support service for startup businesses and for existing businesses. As the chair will know, another area we've been working on and were brought in to assist was Bramley, the fuel leak incident, and supporting the small business community there to establish themselves as a working network and linking them into other groups that would be relevant to them and giving them support, which we do now on a more informal basis. There are some photos there of a successful event we ran at Farnham Castle. We do an annual business question time event with Guildford Borough Council, and we had a keynote speaker from the University of Surrey talking about 5G and AI, and that went down really, really well. Film Map, that was when that came out, that was a rehashed version, but you'll see one as you leave the council chamber. We've got a Film Waverley support for the sector, and we pay with the Parks and Leisure team for membership for Creative England, so supporting that. And the visitor economy, that employs about 5% to 7% of local working population, so we work with Visit Surrey to support that sector. I mentioned the Business Waverley website. We have about 5,000 users, and we've got a knowledge hub on there. We've got links into other council services. We've got a business support email, which people often get confused with business rates email. So we're sort of forwarding people onto different services within the council. And we've got a monthly e-newsletter. We've got one going out tomorrow for December with links to any funding that's available, any information from key partners, but also news from the council and what we're offering. Finally, I've mentioned we're really fortunate in this area that we've got the University of Creative Arts and the Createch sector and the creative corridor going down from Royal Holloway further, well, it will be in the West Surrey, but we've got the University of Surrey on our doorstep. A lot of the professors live in Waverley, good quality of life. So we work closely with the two universities, and we want to encourage graduates to stay in the area and retain them. So one of our actions in the future will be looking at Makerspace. Abby, I think that's about it for that page.
Should hopefully have moved on, Catherine. Hopefully.
Yeah, thank you. So everyone's high streets are very visible to residents, visitors, businesses, people, employment in the area, and people want to know what's happening in the high street. So we do monitor, and it's all available online for people to access via the Business Waverley website. We use a company called Place Informatics, and we've gone out to procurement again for their services. So they use cell phone data for trends, and they work all over the country, so they give comparisons. So we get monthly footfall figures. We also biannually go out and look at vacancy rates, and we've just started looking at the floor space and also the range of businesses that covers. So what's the makeup of each of our high streets, or the leisure, retail, office. As it was mentioned in the introduction, we work closely with partners. We can't do it alone, and so we worked with the establishment who actually came to overview and scrutiny several years ago with Cranley Chamber, who were interested in a bid for Cranley. So we worked with the three bids that came into being in 2023, Cranley, Godalming and Farnham. And we also work closely with Hazelmere Chamber and the other area chambers as well, and Surrey Chamber of Commerce. For example, so we attend their monthly board meetings, and Abby and myself met with Farnham Bid last week. You know, we're working with them all of the time. We'll talk about a project that we're doing with the chambers and the bids further on business crime, because you know that is an issue. We've recently had some videos created actually through a small business. They'd come to the NQ Hive service, expanded their one-man band, and had come and offered to work with us. So I don't know, Abby, if we've got time to show one of the videos, or I can just encourage you to have a look at one of the videos of what businesses we've got on our high streets in our areas.
I think maybe we could circulate the link afterwards. I'm not sufficiently prepared to be able to show it, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's fine. They're really up. Sorry, Jean.
If you could circulate the link, we'd all be really interested to.
Yeah.
They're really good. They're all for I mean, the Godalming one, for example, goes up to Chewsley Farm and just shows the range, and you'll be pleasantly surprised by the videos. We've also commissioned a photographer, so we've got up-to-date photos for the high streets, and we share those with our partners. We mentioned the visitor economy being important, and the Maltings have been mentioned as a venue locally and an asset to the area. So we have a performing arts venue meeting that we chair. We've expanded that into Guildford, Rushmore, and just so there's best practice sharing, and they can talk about working with volunteers or ticketing systems or programs. And our last meeting was Eva Arno. So the economic benefit of these venues and how they're bringing people to the area is really important. We want to harness that and support them. I mentioned working with the business improvement districts, where private money is coming in to support high streets, and Waverley and Surrey levy payers as well. Something that's been something that was a key pillar to the bids being voted for was safety on the high streets. We're in a really safe borough, but there still is business crime. And, you know, we hear of vans coming and things being, you know, taken off shelves rather than for immediate need. So we've been working with Cranley and Godalming Bid and Hazelmere Chamber and colleagues in community safety to bring in a system called DISC, which is a safe app that retailers would have on their phones in their shop, so they can take photos and feed into the police directly. We're speaking to Surrey Police directly, sorry, about a live feed, working closely with Guildford, Experience Guildford, have this live feed into the police system, so we have accurate reporting about what the problem is, and then resources can be allocated on that basis. So this will be launched in February next year. It will be a soft launch to start with as we get retailers on board, but the co-op are very supportive, and some Waitrose are supportive. So if we can get big retailers like that on board who do have problems, that'd be good. Excuse me. We've mentioned the strategy's aims for a sustainable economy. Something that we are working on and we launched in September is a Go Green for Business scheme. So we went out, it's something that's worked well in the London boroughs, and they've actually linked it to a business rate reduction scheme for businesses that are doing that. So, but we're not able to do that here, but we're funding the Go Green support, which means that that businesses are taken on the journey to Green Mark accreditation. So it's more accessible than something like B Corp. We've got the cohort starting, and so they're working with Carbon Architecture that run the Mark scheme, and they will be building up a peer-to-peer network, which will be great, and we can encourage other businesses to participate in that scheme. You can also put the badge on your directory listing on our Business Waverley website, and we use that directory to encourage people to buy local from local suppliers, and keep procurement local. We've run some carbon literacy training over the last 18 months, working with Surrey County Council and also the Sustainable Business Network in Guildford. And we did run through the UK SPF a loan scheme, but businesses didn't feel they're in the position to borrow money. So that's why we've had to offer the Go Green scheme. We're covering the costs of that through the Economic Development strategy budget. We've mentioned enhancing our physical and digital infrastructure, something we hear about all the time, whether it's using the car parking machines, whether it's trying to use card machines at markets. So the service continues to lobby local mobile network operators and speak to Surrey County Council on a regular basis and their digital connectivity experts. We've got all our information online. If people come to us, then we will point them in the directions they can find out what support there might be available. We also work closely with the Farnham Infrastructure Programme, attend their officer meetings, promote every piece of information that they've got, walk the streets, and speak to businesses about it, and try and amplify the messaging as much as we can with the business community, working with the Farnham Bid as well on that, and Farnham Town Council. On a quarterly basis, we meet with commercial agents and get insights from themselves of what's happening, what's in demand, what's less in demand, and how we can help with it. And so they'll come to us, or we can come to them or signpost them. And I know, for example, David Lloyd came and met with our colleagues in assets in Godalming quite recently, and we've spoken to different hotel groups and what have you. So that's a good relationship. One thing I did forget to mention is when we were looking at the UK Shared Prosperity Governance, we established a local economy advisory forum, and the commercial agents were invited to be part of that, and so were the rural business members, and to get a cross-representation, and we'll be looking to reinvigorate that moving into next year. Something that we have launched actually this month, which is going to be really beneficial and have had really positive feedback so far, is an online learning platform. We're working with a partner called Seedle on recommendation from Rushmore Borough Council and Basingstoke, and we're paying for a pilot year, but it's free access to lots of short training courses, live and recorded. I've been on 2 myself this week just to suss it out. So we've had really positive feedback, and there is one just for employees. It's just different branding, and then one actually for residents. So I would really recommend you have a look at that and see if there's anything of interest, and please do share that with any residents or businesses that you're speaking to. We don't have capacity to do business to consumer marketing. We just do business to business marketing. So we work with Visit Surrey, which is the CIC, and they've got a really good database, and they can assist us. We're doing some promotional work with them in January on Hazelmere's behalf because of the closure of the Waitrose and the implications and worries for the local business community. We've done something pre-Christmas highlighting all of the events that the bids and the chambers and the town councils have done, as well as other businesses. And something that the council is looking at, led by the capital projects team, but also importantly with procurement and legal, is a social value policy for the council. And we'll be looking at a social value index. So what do people want? We support the job clubs in Cranley and in Farnham, paying for the room, and they're run by volunteers. So they said to us they could do with clothing for interviews, and also, steel toe cap boots and things like that, suits. So can we put that in as a requirement when somebody wins an award for the council? What will they be offering? What people want, rather than just So as well as work experience and presentations, will they be offering other advantages and elements for the local residents and businesses to benefit from? The free business support service we mentioned with Inky Hive we'll continue with, and we're just signing up for another couple of years. Surrey County Council have actually employed them on a short-term basis, and other local, Guildford are using them, and with Rushmore. So even with LGR, that service will hopefully still continue. So thanks, Abby. So yeah, priorities for 2026. We've mentioned the Go Green for Business support scheme. Get that up and running. We've actually confirmed with the UCA's second year film student. He's going to be doing short videos of those 15 businesses to generate interest and exposure of the businesses and their journey to Green Mark accreditation. We've mentioned the Createch sector and the value of it and importance of it to Waverley, how it ties in with University of Surrey, with Royal Holloway, how can we attract more businesses, high quality employment to this area? And so that will be through an inward investment piece. Why should businesses, particularly Createch sector, come to this area?
Catherine, I don't want
Am I going on a bit?
well, I don't want to cut you off. I'm just conscious that we've still got another agenda item after this. So are you
I think we're almost finished.
You are, okay. Fab.
You can, yes.
Thanks. Do you want to
I
round up?
won't go on too much. Brightwell's is sorry. I was only going to say we're trying to work with Brightwell's UCA and public estate in Farnham to try and secure, longevity in Farnham for the university. You can see the others, Rural Waverley, and we host and chair the Guildford Business, the Waverley and Guildford Rural Business Forum. We've got the University of Surrey coming to talk to the group in January. I think all the rest you can see.
Probably covered most of them. Thank you, Catherine. I'm just going to say, Chair, if we can, just to summarise, I think hopefully what you've seen has given you a good flavour of the work that the 1.5 strong team in Catherine and Jill Daly has been delivering over the past year and a half, and what we're aiming to do. I think it would be fantastic if members of the committee would be happy to kind of promote some of the ongoing kind of activity that we've got, which might be relevant to businesses and residents in the area, such as CEDL and other things that we've kind of commented on. So if you're happy, it would be great for us to be able to share some links that you might be able to push out through your networks, if possible. But I just want to thank Catherine and Jill for their ongoing work and commitment.
Oh, thank you very much, both. I think actually that's been really timely update for all of us as a new committee, because a lot of us have not had much to do with this particular area. For example, if we've been coming from the resources scrutiny side, so that's been a really great introduction for us all. And I'm always astonished, Catherine, how 1.5 of you managed to get so much of that done. So your team of 1.5, I think all the committee are nodding actually when I'm saying that. We all agree. Well done. I think I personally have no comments other than to thank you for that presentation. I'm just going to see Councillor Lawton does. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that really insightful summary. It's a really lot of detail. I have 3 questions. I can see a lot of statistics and a lot of numbers there, but frankly, they don't mean much to me unless I can see them in context with what else is going on in other parts of the country or other similar sized towns. So when you say, you talk about number of businesses, number of jobs, all of these statistics, do you put them in as a percentage or in comparison with other, like for example, rest of Surrey, rest of South East, rest of the UK? And so that's one question. Second question is, the bids, as we can see, there are 3 bids, certainly from the Farnham perspective. It isn't always plain sailing. There's a lot of challenges going on with bids. So I don't know if you've got any information which confirms that as a result of the bids, and I know we're only in our first year of it, has the economy and local businesses improved as a result of it? I know Farnham's very difficult because of the FIP, and that's made a big challenge. And also, how do you measure your success of the economic development strategy compared to if you didn't have one? They're difficult questions, I understand, but that would help. Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I answer briefly? So on comparisons, the footfall data, for example, is compared, and that information is online, and we send out to key contacts each month how we're faring. In terms of economic intelligence and creating a dashboard like that, we really could do with some more resources on that. And I know that's something that we've raised before. There used to be Surrey Eye, and we were trying to expand that. So that is something that would be an improvement for the service to be able to compare. We do compare favourably. We look at vacancy rates and we do compare that. So, for example, in Farnham, I think it was about 6 or 7%, whereas nationally it's 14%. And which leads on to the success of the bids. They are in their early stage of setting up and established, but the turnover and churn, the vacancy rates are pretty static, which is, I think, is good, and it shows the business communities working together, doing additional marketing. Cranley bid, for example, doing fish and chip day, that was really successful for them, and doing additional activities. Christmas lights in Cranley, I don't think would have been paid for. The Chamber of Commerce couldn't afford to pay for them, the parish couldn't afford. So the bid has been paying for things that wouldn't have been possible for the village otherwise. They've got their business plans, which are online and were voted on, so they have to show success of those. One thing I would add, so the DISC system I mentioned, the business crime reporting system, that's a good example of public-private. So we're putting in the money to set the system up, and then the bids are going with it, and we won't be financially contributing to that. But for them, the cost is good value. It's £2,000 a year because they're sharing it between the 3 of them. And Farnham can get involved in that if they want to. It's just they use a different system. In terms of what we would, I suppose our successes it's difficult to say macroeconomics, national economics. We're in a different situation post-COVID. We lost a lot of jobs with Brexit in the area, and certainly international jobs. So it's an expensive place to run a business here. So we've had some great businesses. We had Ramsack and Godalming. They've just wanted to expand, and they've gone to Guildford. We've got Lime Track. They were in Cranley. They got some big investment. They've moved to Twickenham. So we are sort of finding ourselves a bit of an incubator space. So what can we do to try and retain people in the area is something we need to look at.
Thank you for that. Sometimes it might be helpful to have some objective stats which say, before you did this, this is what you were achieving, and after you did this, you've been able to show whatever KPIs you want to put in. That's all. But thank you very much for the feedback.
I can't see any other comments from the group other than just to confirm we're very happy to share what you're doing. Please tell not just us but all councillors, and keep us updated, and we'll keep doing that. Very happy. And thank you again, Catherine. That was a really great update. And to Abby as well. Appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks all.
Good evening. And now we shall move on to our final agenda item of the night, which is the performance monitoring for Q2. Like I said before, Candice, if you're happy to just sort of run us through that. I'm not proposing that we will do this to death, because we're going to go full budget next meeting. So which you're all very excited about, I can see. Over to you, Candice.
Absolutely, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll fly through it because you're going to hear a lot from me next month. So starting with the general fund, the report highlights that we're expecting forecasting an underspend of sorry, that's a lie, £452,000 for 25-26. So I'll just draw out the key variances. That includes an underspend on establishment, which we've updated that wording following, I think, a lot of discussions, Chair. So we're calling it underspends of establishment now, 727,000. And what we've added into this report now is an additional table down in Appendix 3, which is on page, should check that before. It is down on page 172 of the report, and that lists out the savings in the underspends of establishment per service area. So it's a bit of additional information for the committee. It's usually an area to highlight. It is an area of concern. That's not saying that we've got too many staff and that we're making lots of savings. That's saying that we're under-resourced. And something that needs to be addressed and is actively being addressed by assistant directors. The other key variances that we see, I won't list them all, but Waverley Training Services, for example, it is forecasting an underachievement there of income of 102,000, but the service is making efforts to mitigate this, so holding vacancies where they haven't got the income coming in, and all of that brings that variance down to £22,000. And as you've had discussed today, that business plan is in place to address that deficit. And in terms of changes from last time, one to highlight is we are requesting a supplementary estimate for the homelessness budget of 246,000. The reason for this is the increase in temporary accommodation costs. It's being seen nationally. It's not it's specific to Waverley. We do have a reserve to mitigate that, and we are suggesting it is funded from that reserve. And I think it's going to be a key theme that you're going to see coming through in the budget setting for 26-27, where we anticipate that our funding in this area is going to be cut substantially. So we've also included, we've got reserves. I won't go through all of that. That's all that detail is there. The housing revenue account, we're forecasting a £933,000 of savings in that area. Again, 165,000 is relating to underspend on staffing budgets. We've got a bit of additional rent income, but nothing significant compared to the £34 million budget. And we've got some other areas, savings in areas like utilities and cyclical maintenance budgets, really in line, particularly that cyclical maintenance budget. And what you'll see in capital is that resourcing element and the need for more resource to deliver the capital programme. What we've added into this report, following feedback from this committee specifically, is a new appendix, which is, and this is mainly Councillor Martin that had raised this request. So it's the new Appendix 7, I think. Yeah, no, 8, which is on page 180, and that is taking you through the movements in budget from one quarter to another, so that transparency is there. We will have changes in quarter, usually due to supplementary estimates, inflations, or carry forward. So that's just listing that out for you as a committee. And we've also got this quarter, the mid-year review for the Treasury Management Strategy. So that includes our performance to date, which continues to be a really good performance from the Treasury Management team. And also included in there is, the experience of the team. All of that's listed out, as well as some key metrics, which are highlighted in page 184, which is what I would draw the attention of the committee to in terms of that appendix. Other than that, I've got nothing else really to raise unless you've got any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Candice. That was, you know, the underspends is, as you pointed out, that's not good news for us. It means that we're not delivering what we want to be able to deliver, even though it means it apparently feels good to have the underspend. It's not. I'll pass on Councillor Mountain's personal thanks for the variance. I'm sure he'll have something to tweak it next meeting, but you know, let you have the Christmas off beforehand. Does anybody else have any comments on the budget meeting? I mean, I'm noting we will have pre-meetings and briefings and all sorts of things, and obviously as a scrutiny committee, I'm hoping there'll be more of us at the next meeting. There's about half of us are missing, Nobody's got any other comments? No. Well, thank you for presenting that, Candice. And as you get bombarded by me emails wise anyway, I'm sure you know that if I have any problems, I will be emailing you. So I think that just leaves me to ask, is there anything else anyone else wants to raise? No. Thank you, everybody, for tonight. And I'm closing the meeting. Thank you. Cheers. Thanks all. Bye-bye. Thanks. Thank you, Liz.